The great hall of the Kralix Dominion was silent. Supreme Commander Vexithar stood before the council, his forearms crossed in a gesture of complete confidence. Behind him, holographic displays showed maps of the galaxy. Red markers covered 200 star systems. Each one represented a world under Kralix control. The reports about this new species are meaningless, Vexithar said. His voice echoed through the chamber. They call themselves humans. They come from a planet called Earth. Our intelligence says they just learned how to travel faster than light. They are primitives. They are no threat to the Dominion. Council member Thexan leaned forward. His old eyes studied the data on his personal screen. The humans have been sending observation ships near our borders. They watch us. Should we be concerned? Vexithar laughed. It was a harsh sound that made the younger council members flinch. Let them watch. What can they learn? That we are powerful? That we have conquered every species we have encountered? Let them see our strength. It will make them surrender faster when we decide to add their world to our empire. The council voted. The decision was unanimous. Humanity was not a threat. The Kralix would deal with them when convenient. There were other matters to attend to. The Dominion had ruled for 3,000 years. One more primitive species meant nothing. Halfway across the galaxy, Captain Danny Wright sat in his command chair aboard the UES Horizon. The bridge was quiet except for the soft hum of the ship's systems. Outside the windows, stars streaked past as the ship traveled through faster-than-light space. Captain, incoming transmission from Earth Command. Lieutenant Chris Morgan said from the tactical station. It's Admiral Gomez. She says it's priority 1. Danny straightened in his chair. Put her through. Admiral Patricia Gomez appeared on the main screen. She was a woman in her 50s with gray hair and sharp eyes. She had commanded Earth's defense forces for 10 years. She never called unless it was important. Captain Wright, we have a situation, she said without greeting. Our deep space monitoring network picked up Kralix communications. They're planning to send a fleet to Earth. They want to make us part of their empire. Danny felt his stomach tighten. Every human in the military knew about the Kralix. They were the most powerful force in the galaxy. They had weapons that could destroy planets. No one had ever defeated them in battle. When? Danny asked. 2 weeks. Maybe 3, Patricia said. They're sending 12 warships. According to their intercepted communications, they expect us to surrender immediately. Chris turned in his chair. Admiral, 12 Kralix warships could destroy our entire fleet. Our intelligence reports say each of their ships is more powerful than anything we have. Patricia smiled. It was a cold smile that made Danny sit up straighter. That's what they think, Lieutenant. That's exactly what we want them to think. Danny understood immediately. The technology we've been showing them. It's all fake? Not fake. Just old, Patricia said. Everything the Kralix have seen from us is based on technology from 20 years ago. We let them spy on us. We let them see old ships, old weapons, old defenses. We wanted them to think we were primitive. Chris looked confused. But why? Why would we hide our real capabilities? Patricia's expression turned serious. Because 5 years ago when we first encountered the Kralix, our strategists made a decision. When you face an enemy stronger than you don't show them your true strength. You let them underestimate you. You study them. You learn everything about them. And when they finally attack, you hit them with everything they didn't know you had. Danny felt a surge of hope. So we can fight them? We can do more than fight them, Patricia said. For 5 years, we've been analyzing every Kralix battle we could observe. We've studied their tactics, their weapons, their ship designs. We know their weaknesses better than they know them themselves. Our scientists have built ships specifically designed to counter their technology. She touched something off-screen. New data appeared on the Horizon's displays. Danny's eyes widened as he read the specifications. The real capabilities of Earth's fleet were incredible. The ships were faster, more maneuverable, and more heavily armed than anything the Kralix had seen. Our shields can absorb their plasma weapons, Patricia continued. Our railguns can punch through their defenses. We have stealth technology they don't even know exists. And most importantly, our officers are trained to think independently and adapt. The Kralix fight in rigid formations. They follow doctrine. They don't improvise well. Lieutenant Morgan was reading the data with growing excitement. Admiral, if this is true, we actually have a chance. More than a chance, Patricia said. Captain Wright, I'm giving you new orders. When the Kralix fleet arrives, Your ship will be part of the defense force. 10 ships total. We're going to show them just enough to make them retreat. We want them to know we're not easy prey, but we don't want to show them everything yet. Danny understood the strategy. You want them to come back with more ships? Exactly. They're arrogant. When 12 ships fail, they'll send more. Maybe 50, maybe 100. They'll commit major forces because their pride will be hurt. And that's when we hit them with everything. Chris spoke up again. Admiral, isn't that dangerous? What if we can't handle a larger fleet? Patricia's smile returned. Lieutenant, the Kralix Empire is big, but it's also spread thin. They control 200 worlds. That means their fleet is scattered across the galaxy, keeping conquered species under control. They can't bring their full strength to Earth without leaving their empire vulnerable. We've done the calculations. The most they can bring against us is about 80 to 100 ships without risking rebellion in their territory. And we can handle that many? Danny asked. We have 70 ships with our new technology, plus defense platforms around Earth, plus something the Kralix don't have and won't expect. What's that? Allies, Patricia said. We've been in secret contact with 3 species under Kralix occupation. They're ready to rebel if we can prove the Dominion can be beaten. If we defeat the Kralix at Earth, the entire empire might start to collapse from within. Danny felt the weight of what she was saying. This wasn't just about defending Earth. This was about potentially freeing dozens of species from centuries of slavery. There's one more thing, Patricia said. Our psychologists have been studying Kralix culture. They're warriors, but they're not flexible thinkers. They believe strength is everything. They believe their way is the only way. That makes them predictable. They'll do exactly what we expect because they can't imagine doing anything else. And we can imagine plenty, Danny said quietly. That's right, Captain. Humanity has fought wars for thousands of years. We've learned hard lessons. We know how to fight when we're outnumbered. We know how to adapt. We know how to win against superior forces. The Kralix are about to learn what happens when they underestimate us. The transmission ended. Danny sat in his command chair thinking about what was coming. In 2 weeks, maybe 3, the Kralix would arrive expecting an easy conquest. Instead, they would find something they had never encountered before. They would find humans who had been preparing for this fight for 5 years. Chris broke the silence. Captain, do you think we can really do this? Beat the Kralix Empire? Danny looked at his tactical officer. Chris was young, barely 30, but he was smart and brave. Like everyone else in Earth's fleet, he had volunteered knowing the danger. The Kralix have been undefeated for 3,000 years, Danny said. They think that means they're invincible. But we know better. Everything that rises eventually falls. Empires that get too confident make mistakes. And the Kralix are about to make their biggest mistake. What mistake is that? Danny smiled. They're about to attack Earth. The Kralix fleet emerged from faster-than-light travel at the edge of Earth's solar system. 12 massive warships, each one bigger than anything humanity had ever built. Their dark hulls reflected no light. Weapon ports glowed with barely contained energy. These were ships built for one purpose: conquest. Commander Zektor stood on the bridge of his flagship, the Devastator. He was young for a fleet commander, but he had earned his position through ruthless efficiency. He had conquered 4 worlds personally. Earth would be his 5th. All ships report ready, his second officer said. Weapons are charged. Shields are active. Zektor studied the display showing Earth's solar system. The primitive human planet was the 3rd from its sun. Scanners showed 10 human ships moving to intercept. Only 10, against 12 superior Kralix warships. Open a channel to the human planet, Zektor ordered. Let's give them a chance to surrender. The communication officer worked his console. Channel open, Commander. Zektor spoke clearly, his words translated by automated systems. Attention, planet Earth. I am Commander Zektor of the Kralix Dominion. Your world has been selected for incorporation into our empire. You have 1 hour to surrender unconditionally. If you comply, your people will be allowed to live under Kralix rule. If you resist, your planet will be destroyed. Choose wisely. He closed the channel and waited. Around him, his crew prepared for battle. But no one was worried. This would be easy. It was always easy. On the bridge of the UES horizon, Danny Wright listened to the Kralix ultimatum. Around him, his crew worked calmly at their stations. They had practiced for this moment for months. Everyone knew their role. Captain, the other ships in our group are in position, Chris Morgan reported from Tactical. We're ready to engage. Danny touched his communication panel. This is Captain Wright to all ships. Initiate defensive formation beta. Remember, we're using kinetic weapons only. No energy weapons yet. We want them to think that's all we have. 9 other human ships acknowledged. They moved into a spread formation, creating a defensive line between the Kralix fleet and Earth. The ships looked small compared to the massive Kralix vessels. That was intentional. Humanity had designed their warships to be underestimated. The hour passed quickly. Zektor smiled when the humans refused to surrender. He had hoped they would resist. Destroying their ships would send a clear message to the rest of the galaxy. The Kralix dominion was not to be challenged. All ships attack formation, Zektor commanded. Target the human vessels. Destroy them. The Kralix fleet advanced. Their plasma cannons began to charge. These weapons could melt through any known defense. They could turn ships into clouds of vapor in seconds. Against primitive human shields, they would be completely overwhelming. Fire, Zektor said calmly. 12 Kralix ships unleashed their plasma cannons. Blue-white beams of superheated energy crossed the distance between the fleets. They struck the human ship's dead center. Zektor expected to see the human vessels explode. Instead, something impossible happened. The beams hit the human shields and dispersed. The energy scattered harmlessly into space. The human ships were completely undamaged. What? Zektor stood up from his command chair. How are their shields holding? His tactical officer checked his displays frantically. Commander, their shields are absorbing our plasma weapons. According to my readings, their shield strength is only at 30% capacity. They're barely trying. Impossible. No species had shields that could resist Kralix plasma weapons, not without massive power systems that would require enormous ships. But these human ships were small. How could they have such advanced shielding? On the horizon, Chris Morgan watched his tactical display with satisfaction. Captain, Kralix plasma weapons are having zero effect. Our shields are holding at 30% capacity, just like the simulations predicted. Danny nodded. Good, now let's show them what we can do. All ships return fire. Railguns only. Target their weapon systems and engines. The human ships fired their railguns. These were simple weapons in concept. Solid projectiles accelerated to incredible speeds using electromagnetic force. No complex energy weapons, just heavy metal moving very, very fast. The projectiles crossed the distance in seconds. They slammed into the Kralix shields with devastating force. The Kralix shields, designed to deflect energy weapons, were useless against solid matter traveling at such velocity. 3 Kralix ships shuddered as railgun rounds punched through their shields and into their hulls. Explosions rippled across their surfaces. Weapon ports went dark. Engine sections vented atmosphere into space. Zektor gripped his command chair. Impossible. Their weapons shouldn't be able to penetrate our shields. Commander, their projectile weapons are using pure kinetic force, the tactical officer reported. Our shields aren't designed to stop solid matter at those velocities. They're exploiting a weakness in our defensive systems. The battle continued for 20 minutes. The human ships moved with surprising speed and agility. They dodged Kralix plasma beams while their railguns found target after target. The Kralix ships, built for overwhelming firepower in direct combat, couldn't adapt to this new type of warfare. 5 Kralix ships were now damaged. 2 were barely functional. The human ships had taken no damage at all. Their shields continued to absorb plasma weapons with ease. Zektor made a decision he had never made before in his military career. All ships retreat. Jump to hyperspace immediately. His crew stared at him in shock. Retreat? The Kralix didn't retreat, but they also didn't lose battles against primitive species. Now, Zektor shouted. The Kralix fleet turned and jumped into faster-than-light travel. They left behind 2 severely damaged ships that couldn't make the jump. Within seconds, the mighty Kralix invasion force was gone. On the horizon, Danny watched the Kralix fleet disappear. Around the bridge, his crew started to cheer. They had just done the impossible. They had defeated the Kralix. Hold the celebration, Danny said, though he was smiling. This was just the first test. Chris, damage report. All human ships undamaged, Captain, Chris reported. The 2 Kralix ships that couldn't retreat are powering down. They're surrendering. Danny opened a channel to Earth Command. Admiral Patricia Gomez appeared on the screen. She looked pleased but not surprised. Well done, Captain, she said. You performed exactly as expected. The plan worked, Admiral, Danny said. They had no idea our shields could handle their weapons. And they weren't prepared for kinetic weapons. Just like you predicted, Patricia nodded. The Kralix have been fighting the same way for so long, they forgot that other approaches exist. Their plasma weapons are powerful, but they're predictable. Our scientists designed our shields specifically to counter them. What about the 2 ships we captured? Danny asked. Secure them and bring them to Earth orbit. We'll want to study their technology, but more importantly, we'll want to interrogate their crews. The more we learn about the Kralix military structure, the better prepared we'll be for their next attack. Chris spoke up. Admiral, do you think they'll come back? Patricia smiled. Lieutenant, the Kralix have never been defeated before. Their entire empire is built on the idea that they're invincible. One failed attack will hurt their pride, but they'll rationalize it. They'll say Commander Zektor made mistakes. They'll say he underestimated us, and then they'll come back with more ships to restore their reputation. How many more ships? Chris asked. Probably 50 to 80, Patricia said. Maybe more if Supreme Commander Vexthar decides to lead the fleet personally. His ego won't allow this defeat to stand. Danny understood. So this was just the opening move. Exactly. We've shown them we're not helpless. But we haven't shown them everything. They still don't know about our energy weapons, our stealth technology, or our real combat capabilities. When they come back with superior numbers, that's when we reveal what humanity can really do. The transmission ended. Danny sat back in his command chair and looked at his crew. They had won the first battle, but the real war was just beginning. The Kralix Empire would not accept defeat easily. They would come back stronger, angrier, and more determined. But humanity had been preparing for this for 5 years. Every simulation, every training exercise, every new technology had been designed for one purpose: to prove that even the mightiest empire could fall if it became too arrogant. The Kralix thought strength came from superior weapons and bigger ships. Humanity knew better. Real strength came from preparation, adaptability, and the willingness to fight smarter instead of harder. Commander Zektor would return to Kralix space and report his defeat. Supreme Commander Vexthar would be furious. He would assemble a massive fleet and come to Earth personally to restore the Dominion's honor, and humanity would be ready. Supreme Commander Vexthar stood in the center of the war room. Around him, holographic displays showed the humiliating defeat at Earth. He had watched the recording 17 times. Each viewing made him angrier. Commander Zektor knelt before him, head bowed. The young officer had returned to Kralix space expecting punishment. He was right to expect it. You retreated, Vexthar said quietly. His voice was cold as ice. You ran from primitives with barely functional technology. Supreme Commander, their shields were more advanced than our intelligence suggested, Zektor tried to explain. Their weapons were unexpected. They used kinetic projectiles that bypassed our defenses. Vexthar struck Zektor across the face with one of his 4 arms. The blow sent the younger officer sprawling. You had 12 warships. They had 10 smaller vessels. You should have adapted. You should have found a way to win. Instead, you brought shame to the Dominion. Council Member Thexan spoke from his position near the wall. Supreme Commander, perhaps we underestimated the humans. Maybe we should negotiate. Vexithar turned on him. Negotiate? With a species that just entered galactic space? Never. We will crush them. We will burn their planet to ash. And we will make sure every species in the galaxy knows what happens when you defy the Kralix Dominion. He turned back to the holographic display. The battle played again. Human ships moving with surprising speed. Kralix plasma weapons scattering harmlessly against human shields. Railgun rounds punching through Kralix defenses. It was impossible. It shouldn't have happened. But it did. I will personally lead the next attack, Vexthar announced. Assemble the 4th and 7th battle fleets. 80 ships. We will show these humans the true power of the Dominion. Thexan looked worried. 80 ships? That's the largest fleet we've assembled in 500 years. It will leave many systems with reduced protection. Then let them try to rebel, Vexthar growled. After we destroy Earth, every species under our control will remember why they fear us. This will not just be a conquest. This will be an example. 3 weeks later, the Kralix fleet arrived at Earth's solar system. 80 massive warships emerged from faster-than-light travel in perfect formation. They spread out across space like a wall of metal and death. Each ship bristled with weapons. Together, they carried enough firepower to destroy a dozen planets. On the bridge of his flagship, the Eternal Fury, Vexithar studied the displays. 40 human ships were moving to intercept, 40 against 80. Better odds than Zektor had faced, but still suicide for the humans. "Open a channel," Vexthar commanded. The communication officer nodded. "Channel open, Supreme Commander." "Attention, humans," Vexthar said. "I am Supreme Commander Vexthar. I have come personally to accept your surrender. You defeated a small scouting force through trickery, but there is no trick that will save you from the fleet I command. Surrender now, or I will destroy every human ship, space station, and settlement. Then I will bombard your planet until nothing lives." The response came from Admiral Patricia Gomez. Her face appeared on Vexthar's screen. She looked calm, too calm. That bothered him. "Supreme Commander Vexthar," Patricia said. "I am Admiral Gomez of the United Earth Space Force. I have a counteroffer. Leave our system now and we won't destroy your fleet. This is your only warning." Vexthar laughed. Around him, his bridge crew joined in. "The humans thought they could threaten the Dominion? With only 40 ships? You are either very brave or very stupid, Admiral," Vexthar said. "I'm giving you one final chance. Surrender or die." Patricia's expression didn't change. "You had your chance. Don't say we didn't warn you." The channel closed. Vexthar's laughter died. He felt a flicker of unease. The human admiral seemed too confident, but why? What could she possibly know that he didn't? "All ships advance," Vexthar ordered. "Maintain formation. Prepare to fire on my command." The Kralix fleet moved forward. 80 warships advancing like a tidal wave. Their shields glowed with power. Their weapons charged. This would be over quickly. The human fleet spread out to meet them. 40 ships against 80. It looked like a suicide run. But then something strange happened. 20 of the human ships simply disappeared. What? Vexthar stared at his display. Where did they go? The tactical officer worked his console frantically. "Supreme Commander, I don't know. They were there a moment ago. Now our sensors show nothing. It's like they vanished." "Ships don't just vanish," Vexthar snapped. "Find them, now." But the sensors couldn't find what wasn't visible. The 20 human ships had activated their stealth systems. Technology the Kralix didn't even know existed. Technology humanity had kept hidden until this exact moment. The remaining 20 human ships continued forward, drawing the Kralix attention. Vexthar focused on them, assuming the other ships had retreated. His fleet advanced, ready to crush the visible human vessels. Then the invisible ships struck. The first Kralix ship to die never knew what hit it. A human stealth frigate appeared directly behind it, fired a full spread of missiles and railgun rounds into its engines, and disappeared again before the Kralix could react. The Kralix warship exploded, torn apart from within. Then another Kralix ship died. Then another. The invisible human ships moved through the Kralix formation like ghosts. They appeared, fired, and vanished. The Kralix fleet fell into chaos. "All ships, defensive formation," Vexthar shouted. "Watch for the invisible ships." But how do you watch for something you can't see? The Kralix sensors were designed to track normal ships with engine signatures and energy outputs. The human stealth ships produced almost no detectable signature. They were effectively invisible. On the bridge of the UES Defiance, Admiral Patricia Gomez watched the battle unfold. She sat calmly in her command chair while around her, officers coordinated the attack. This was the moment they had planned for. Commander Nicole Barnes, her tactical coordinator, called out updates. "Stealth Group Alpha has disabled 7 Kralix ships. Stealth Group Beta is engaging the right flank. The Kralix fleet is breaking formation." "Good," Patricia said. "Chris, how are our visible ships doing?" Captain Chris Morgan, now commanding one of the visible human ships, responded over the communication channel. "We're taking fire, Admiral, but our shields are holding. The Kralix are so busy trying to find the stealth ships they can't coordinate their attack on us." Patricia allowed herself a small smile. "Maintain pressure. Keep them confused." The battle raged for 2 hours. The Kralix fleet, designed to fight in organized formations with overwhelming firepower, couldn't adapt to this new type of warfare. They were fighting 2 separate battles, one against the human ships they could see and another against an enemy that struck from nowhere. The stealth ships used hit-and-run tactics. They would appear, unleash devastating firepower at point-blank range, then disappear before the Kralix could return fire. Meanwhile, the visible human ships used their superior maneuverability to avoid Kralix plasma weapons, while their own railguns and missiles found their marks. Vexthar watched in horror as his fleet fell apart. 30 ships were damaged or destroyed. The humans had only lost 3 ships, all from the visible group. The invisible ships remained untouched. "Supreme Commander, we need to retreat," his second officer said urgently. "We're losing too many ships." Vexthar wanted to refuse. The Dominion didn't retreat, but he wasn't stupid. If he stayed, his entire fleet would be destroyed. That would be worse than retreat. At least if he withdrew now, he could regroup and plan a new attack. "All ships retreat," he said bitterly. "Jump to hyperspace immediately." The Kralix fleet turned and ran. Ships jumped into faster-than-light travel as quickly as they could. 15 ships were too damaged to jump. They surrendered to the humans. In the end, only 50 Kralix ships made it back to Dominion space. 30 had been destroyed or captured. The largest Kralix fleet assembled in 5 centuries had been defeated by a smaller human force. On the Defiance, Patricia stood and addressed her crew. "Well done, everyone. We've shown the galaxy that the Kralix can be beaten, but this is just the beginning. The Dominion won't give up. They'll be back." Nicole Barnes looked up from her station. "Admiral, what if they come back with their entire fleet? Every ship they have?" Patricia shook her head. "They can't. The Kralix control 200 worlds. If they pull all their ships to attack Earth, those worlds will rebel. The Dominion is spread too thin. Their empire is held together by fear and occupation forces. We've just proven they're not invincible. Now we need to help the species they've enslaved realize they can fight back too." Chris Morgan's face appeared on the communication screen. "Admiral, I'm receiving multiple incoming signals. They're from species under Kralix control. They saw the battle. They're asking if we'll help them rebel." Patricia felt a surge of hope. This was exactly what Earth strategists had predicted. The Kralix Empire wasn't just a military force. It was a structure built on the belief that resistance was impossible. Once that belief cracked, the entire structure would begin to fall. "Tell them yes," Patricia said. "Tell them we'll support any species that wants freedom. The Kralix Empire has ruled for 3,000 years. It's time for that rule to end." The message went out to a dozen worlds. Species that had been enslaved for centuries suddenly had hope. If humans could defeat the Kralix twice, then maybe freedom was possible. The news spread across the galaxy like fire. The Kralix Dominion, undefeated for 3,000 years, had lost 2 battles to the same species. In the slave quarters of 100 worlds, people whispered the name: humans. On the Velnar homeworld, resistance leader Keshva gathered his cell in secret. They met in an abandoned factory, far from Kralix surveillance. 8 Velnar sat in a circle, their scaled faces showing cautious hope. "Is it true?" one of them asked. "Did the humans really defeat Supreme Commander Vexthar himself?" Keshva nodded. "Our sources confirm it. 80 Kralix warships attacked Earth. Only 50 returned. The humans destroyed or captured 30 ships, and they did it with a smaller fleet." Silence fell over the group. For 800 years, the Velnar had been slaves to the Kralix. They had tried to rebel twice. Both times, Kralix warships had bombarded their cities until they surrendered. The Velnar had learned that resistance meant death, but now something had changed. The Kralix could be beaten. "The humans have sent us a message," Keshva continued. "They're offering support. Weapons, training, tactical advice. They want to help us win our freedom." "It's a trap," another Velnar said. "The Kralix are testing us. If we respond, they'll know who the resistance leaders are." Keshva shook his head. "I don't think so. The Kralix don't need tricks to find us. They control everything on our world. If they wanted to destroy the resistance, they could. No, the humans are real, and they're offering us a real chance," the group voted. It was close, but they decided to respond. Within days, the Velnar resistance made contact with Earth. They weren't alone. 3 other species did the same. The Thorin, enslaved for 6 centuries. The Prex, conquered 900 years ago. The Keln, who had been under Kralix rule for over 1,000 years. On Earth, Admiral Patricia Gomez met with President Andrew Miller and the United Earth Council. They gathered in the secure conference room beneath Geneva. On the large screens, faces of resistance leaders from 4 different species appeared. "Thank you for reaching out to us," Patricia said. "We want to help you achieve freedom, but we need to be honest. This will be a long fight. The Kralix won't give up their empire easily." Keshva spoke for the Velnar. "We understand. But we've been slaves for 8 centuries. A long fight is better than no fight at all. What do you need from us?" "Information," Patricia said. "We need to know where Kralix forces are stationed on your worlds, how many ships they have, what weapons they use for occupation." The more we know about their military structure, the better we can help you. Over the next month, information flowed from the resistance movements to Earth. Humanity learned that the Kralix military was spread dangerously thin. They had about 400 warships total, but those ships were scattered across 200 star systems. Most systems only had 1 or 2 ships for occupation duty. In a meeting with Earth's top military strategists, Patricia laid out a new plan. The Kralix strength is also their weakness. They control too much territory with too few ships. If rebellions start happening on multiple worlds simultaneously, they won't be able to respond to all of them. General Kevin Hayes studied the star maps, so instead of fighting the Kralix fleet directly, we support uprisings across their empire. They'll have to choose which rebellions to suppress. Every choice they make weakens them somewhere else. Dr. Lisa Chen, head of weapons research, added another element. We can also provide the resistance movements with weapons specifically designed to fight Kralix technology. Simple but effective. Things they can manufacture locally once we give them the designs. President Miller looked troubled. Are we sure about this? We're not just defending Earth anymore. We're actively working to destroy an entire empire. That's a massive commitment. Patricia met his eyes. Mr. President, the Kralix Empire is built on slavery and oppression. They conquer species and crush their freedom. We have the power to help change that. If we don't act, we're saying that freedom only matters for humans. The president nodded slowly. You're right. Proceed with the operation. Commodore Danny Wright received new orders. He was promoted again and given command of a fast attack group. 6 ships, all equipped with stealth technology. His mission was to take weapons and supplies to resistance movements throughout Kralix space. His first stop was the Velnar homeworld. The UES Horizon dropped out of faster-than-light travel at the edge of the system. Danny studied the tactical display. 2 Kralix warships in orbit around the planet, hundreds of ground installations. Chris, are we clear? Danny asked. Captain Chris Morgan, who had stayed with Danny as his second-in-command, checked his sensors. No sign they detected us, Commodore. Stealth systems are working perfectly. The Horizon moved silently through the system. They landed at a remote location on the Velnar homeworld southern continent. Keshava and his resistance fighters were waiting. Danny met the Velnar leader in person. Keshava was tall and covered in green scales. His eyes were sharp with intelligence. Thank you for coming, Commodore Wright. We've waited a long time for this day. We brought weapons, Danny said. Railguns, explosives, portable shield generators. Also manufacturing plans so you can make more. And something else. He gestured and his crew brought out a small device. This is a communications relay. Once you activate it, you'll be able to coordinate with other resistance cells across the galaxy. You won't be fighting alone anymore. Keshava held the device carefully like it was precious. How many other species are rising up? 12 so far, Danny said. More are joining every week. The Kralix Empire is starting to fracture. Over the next 4 months, rebellions erupted across Kralix space. The Velnar attacked Kralix installations on their homeworld. The Thorin seized control of 3 orbital stations. The Prex destroyed the Kralix occupation fleet in their system. The Keln declared independence and dared the Dominion to stop them. The Kralix tried to respond. They sent ships to suppress the rebellions, but every time they sent forces to one world, 2 more worlds would rise up. It was like trying to hold water in their hands. The more they squeezed, the more escaped. In the Kralix capital, the Dominion Council was in crisis. Supreme Commander Vexthar had been removed from command. War leader Krathax had replaced him. Krathax was younger, more brutal, and absolutely determined to save the Dominion. We are losing control, Council member Thexan said during an emergency session. 12 worlds are in open rebellion. 20 more are showing signs of resistance. Our empire is collapsing. Krathax slammed one of his 4 fists on the table. Then we will show them the cost of rebellion. We will make an example, one so terrible that every other species will think twice before defying us. What do you propose? Thexan asked. The Velnar were the first to rebel, Krathax said. We will destroy their homeworld completely. We will gather every available ship and bombard the planet until nothing lives. Then we will broadcast images of the destruction to every world under our control. They will see what happens to rebels. Thexan looked horrified. That's genocide. We've never destroyed an entire species before. Then it's time we started, Krathax growled. The humans started this by proving we could be defeated. We will end it by proving we are still the most powerful force in the galaxy. Fear will restore order. The council voted. The decision was close, but it passed. The Kralix would assemble one final fleet. Over 100 ships. Every vessel they could spare without completely abandoning their territory. They would go to the Velnar homeworld and destroy it as a warning to all others. The message was intercepted by Earth's intelligence network. Within hours, Patricia Gomez knew about the planned attack. She called an emergency meeting with Earth's military leadership. They're going to destroy the Velnar homeworld, she said without preamble. 100+ Kralix ships. If they succeed, the rebellion will collapse. Every species will be too afraid to continue fighting. Can we stop them? General Hayes asked. Patricia looked at the star maps. We have 70 ships with our most advanced technology. The resistance movements can provide maybe 40 ships total, though most of those are older vessels with limited combat capability. We'll be outnumbered, Dr. Chen spoke up. But we have advantages. We have stealth technology. We have weapons designed specifically to counter Kralix defenses, and we know they'll be coming to the Velnar system. We can prepare the battlefield. Danny Wright's face appeared on the communication screen. He was still in Kralix space with his fast attack group. Admiral, the Velnar are ready to fight. They know what's coming. They're not backing down. Patricia made her decision. All ships return to Earth immediately. We're mobilizing the entire fleet. If the Kralix want to make the Velnar homeworld the decisive battle, then that's where we'll prove once and for all that the Dominion's time is over. President Miller gave his authorization. The full might of Earth's military would travel to the Velnar system. They would face the largest Kralix fleet ever assembled. The outcome would determine the fate of the galaxy. If humanity won, the Kralix Empire would fall. Dozens of species would gain their freedom. If humanity lost, the rebellion would be crushed, and the Dominion would rule through terror for another 1,000 years. Everything depended on what happened next at the Velnar homeworld. The final battle was coming. The Velnar system was quiet. Too quiet. The 2 Kralix occupation ships had fled days ago when they learned what was coming. Now the Velnar homeworld waited. Billions of people looked up at their sky, knowing that death was approaching, but they weren't alone. The human fleet had arrived first. Admiral Patricia Gomez stood on the bridge of the UES Defiance, studying the tactical displays. 70 human warships were positioned throughout the system. They had spent 3 days preparing. Mines had been deployed along likely approach vectors. Defense platforms orbited the planet. Every ship knew its role. Admiral, we're receiving signals from the arriving Allied fleet, Commander Nicole Barnes reported. 42 ships from 6 different species. They're taking up positions as planned. Patricia nodded. 42 ships from the freed worlds. Most were old, equipped with whatever weapons they could salvage or build. But they were here. They were willing to fight for freedom. Commodore Danny Wright commanded the stealth attack group from the horizon. 20 human ships equipped with the best stealth technology Earth could build. They would be the hidden blade in this battle. All ships are in position, Admiral, Danny reported. The Kralix won't know we're here until we want them to. Patricia opened a channel to all ships in the system. This is Admiral Gomez to all vessels. What we do today will be remembered for generations. The Kralix are coming to destroy an entire world as a message. We're here to send a different message. That tyranny ends here. That freedom is worth fighting for. That even the mightiest empire can fall when good people stand together. She paused, looking around her bridge. Her crew was young. Most had never seen combat before the war with the Kralix began. But they had trained hard. They had prepared well. They were ready. The Kralix think strength comes from fear and superior weapons. We know better. Real strength comes from fighting for something worth dying for. Today we fight for the Velnar. We fight for every species enslaved by the Dominion. We fight for the idea that the galaxy should be free. The channel stayed open. On 42 Allied ships, crews heard her words. On the planet below, Velnar families gathered to listen. This was their moment. Win or lose, they would face it with courage. The Kralix fleet arrived in a flash of distorted space. Over 100 warships emerged from faster-than-light travel. They spread across the system in a massive formation. War leader Krathax commanded from his flagship, the Destroyer of Worlds. Scan the system, Krathax ordered. Find all enemy vessels. His tactical officer worked the sensors. War leader, I'm reading 70 human ships and 42 vessels from various rebel species. They're distributed throughout the system. Krathax studied the display. 112 enemy ships against his 108. Nearly equal numbers. But his ships were superior. This would be a hard fight, but he would win. He had to win. The humans are here, Krathax said. They came to defend these rebels. Good. We will destroy them all together. All ships advance. Prepare for full assault. The Kralix fleet moved forward. Their formation was tight, designed to concentrate firepower. They had learned from previous defeats. They would not separate. They would not allow the humans to use hit-and-run tactics. They would stay together and overwhelm the enemy through sheer force. Patricia watched them come. They're trying to avoid the mistakes they made before. They're staying in formation. They want a direct, brutal fight. Should we engage them head-on? Nicole asked. Patricia smiled coldly. No, we're going to do what humans do best. We're going to adapt. She opened a channel to Captain Ellen Ross, who commanded the new stealth carrier UES Shadow. Ellen, launch the drones. Launching now, Admiral, Ellen responded. From the Shadow, hundreds of small drones deployed. Each one was equipped with powerful transmitters that mimicked a full-sized warship's sensor signature. They spread across the system, creating the illusion of hundreds of additional ships. The Kralix sensors lit up with targets. Suddenly, instead of facing 112 enemy ships, their displays showed over 300. What is this? Krathax stared at his tactical display. Where did all these ships come from? War leader, I don't know, his tactical officer said nervously. They appeared from nowhere. I'm reading massive energy signatures from all of them. Krathax made a quick decision. They're trying to confuse us. All ships pick targets and fire. We'll destroy the real ships along with the decoys. The Kralix fleet opened fire. Plasma cannons unleashed devastating beams at the nearest targets. Many of the drones were destroyed instantly. But the Kralix were wasting ammunition on false targets. And while they fired at drones, the real ships were moving into position. Danny Wright watched from the horizon as the Kralix wasted their opening salvo. All stealth ships engage. Target their command vessels first. Let's cut off their leadership. 20 invisible ships moved through the chaos. They slipped past Kralix sensors, using the confusion of the drone attack as cover. They positioned themselves behind the largest Kralix warships. Fire, Danny ordered. 20 ships appeared at once, already firing. Railguns, missiles, and energy weapons struck the Kralix command ships from point-blank range. Shields collapsed. Hulls ruptured. 3 Kralix command ships, including 2 carrying fleet coordinators, exploded within seconds. The Kralix formation began to fall apart. Without coordination, individual ships started making their own decisions. Some moved forward aggressively. Others pulled back. The tight formation that was supposed to be their strength became a weakness as ships got in each other's way. Patricia gave the order for the visible fleet to engage. All ships attack pattern Gamma. Hit them from multiple directions. Don't let them reform. The human and allied fleet struck. They didn't attack as one mass. Instead, they split into small groups, each attacking different parts of the Kralix fleet. 5 ships would strike one target, then break away. Another group would hit a different target. It was chaos, but controlled chaos. The Kralix tried to respond, but they were fighting a battle they didn't understand. Their tactics relied on formations and coordinated firepower. The human tactics relied on flexibility and independent decision-making. Every human captain could think and adapt on their own. The Kralix captains kept waiting for orders that weren't coming. Captain Chris Morgan commanded the UES Valiant, fighting alongside 4 other human ships. They targeted a group of Kralix vessels that were trying to reach the planet's orbit to begin bombardment. All ships, focus on their engines, Chris ordered. We don't need to destroy them. Just stop them. Railgun rounds slammed into Kralix engine sections. Ships that were moving toward the planet suddenly found themselves drifting, unable to maneuver. They became easy targets for follow-up attacks. The battle raged for 8 hours. It was the longest, bloodiest fight in the war. Ships on both sides were destroyed. Brave crews died in explosions or were sucked into space when hulls breached. The Velnar watched from their planet, seeing the sky light up with weapons fire and explosions. But slowly, inevitably, the Kralix fleet was losing. Their superior numbers meant nothing against an enemy that fought smarter. Their powerful weapons couldn't hit targets they couldn't track. Their rigid tactics couldn't adapt to human flexibility. By the 6th hour, 30 Kralix ships were destroyed. 20 more were so damaged they could barely fight. The human and allied fleet had lost 18 ships, but the survivors were still combat effective. Krathax stood on his bridge, watching his fleet fall apart around him. He finally understood. The humans hadn't just built better technology. They had learned to fight in a completely different way, a way the Kralix couldn't counter because it required something the Dominion had bred out of its military: the ability to think independently. "War leader, we must retreat," his tactical officer said. "We're losing too many ships." For a long moment, Krathax said nothing. Then he slumped in his command chair. "Signal all ships, retreat." The surviving Kralix vessels turned and jumped to hyperspace. They left behind over 60 destroyed or disabled ships. The largest Kralix fleet ever assembled had been shattered. On the Defiance, Patricia allowed herself to breathe. Status report. Nicole checked her displays. 18 ships lost. Another 12 heavily damaged but salvageable. The Kralix fleet is in full retreat. Patricia opened a channel to the planet below. Kesheva's face appeared, and she could see tears on the Velnar leader's scaled face. "Your world is safe," Patricia said quietly. "The Kralix won't be coming back." "Thank you," Kesheva said. "Thank you for giving us hope. Thank you for proving that freedom is possible." The news spread across the galaxy within hours. The Kralix Dominion's fleet had been destroyed. Their attempt to crush the rebellion through fear had failed. On world after world, enslaved species rose up. Within weeks, the Dominion lost control of 80 systems. Within months, the Empire had collapsed completely. 6 months later, the first meeting of the Galactic Assembly was held on Earth. Representatives from 50 species gathered in Geneva. The Kralix sent a delegation too, led by former Supreme Commander Vexthar. He was no longer a military leader. He was a representative of a defeated empire trying to find its place in a new galaxy. Admiral Patricia Gomez addressed the assembly. "We gather here not as conquerors and conquered, but as equals. The Kralix Empire fell not because humanity was